It's May 2nd. Rookie draft season is in full swing. Today we're going to be talking about players that I don't think you should draft at their current ADP. So here we're using ADP from Dynasty Data Lab, and it is for Superflex. Don't think it's tight end premium, just Superflex. You have 7,000 drafts, and I filtered it to only include drafts that happened after the NFL draft. The first player we will be talking about here is Kenyon Sadiq. Now, Kenyon Sadiq absolutely destroyed the combine, right? He's super exciting from that standpoint. He was a first round pick by the Jets. I'm mainly concerned about Sadiq because I don't really know how he fits on an NFL offense. In college, he was not really the dominant producer that you would hope for. Last year, Terrence Ferguson was outperforming him, and this year there's another tight end in Oregon that similar numbers by season end, and so the analytical profile is a little concerning from a production standpoint, and I'm not quite sure how he fits into the Jets' offense because they took Mason Taylor last year in the second round, who is more of an all-around tight end that is a good blocker. But Sadiq isn't much of a blocker himself, and I think it's a little concerning that we might be looking at a player that winds up being more like a Dalton Kincaid type, and that is obviously concerning because Kincaid really only plays on passing downs. If you only play on passing downs, then it's kind of hard to return fantasy value because you're just not on the field enough, right? And so Max Toscano of Reception Perception is he came out with his tight end rankings on his Substack. Remember the tight ends here, and he had Sadiq ranked tight end 5, and again, it's mainly just because he's not really a blocker, right? In the current state of the NFL, he doesn't really fit in what offenses are trying to do. I'm no expert in the X's and O's, but I tend to lean on others' evaluations, and it's hard to see a role for him. I think how he wins is if he gets a lot of schemed up volume because the Jets are so invested in him, and he could probably do some stuff after the catch there, and maybe that's how he pays off this price of being a first round rookie pick. But I generally don't think he's worth spending the 107 on, and would much rather take a shot at Casey Concepcion that has less question marks in my eyes. Now, the next player we're going to be talking about is Nick Singleton in the second round, early second round. And Nick Singleton is concerningly not great at football. So I did a whole video on how Nick Singleton could be a dynasty trap. And I mean, it's just continuing to proliferate that he is this kind of intriguing prospect. And I kind of see where people are coming from, right? The thought is, okay, he had a good receiving profile in college. He is athletic. And those two things at the running back position usually are good signs for fantasy, right? But I don't really think his athleticism shows up on film. I didn't really see him break away many runs with his speed. I think his athleticism is good given how big he is, but I don't know if that actually functionally translates very well to the field. And so he's scary because, yeah, there might be some open opportunity in Tennessee right away, and he's got that receiving ability, but I struggle to see how he is a good runner of the football, and that's scary, right? That to me is extremely concerning that, maybe he could he could do some stuff earlier on in his career, but it will be kind of short-lived. I don't think coaches will like to see a guy like this who doesn't really seem to have much vision, doesn't really have much ability to make people miss. I don't really see the appeal as a runner for Singleton. And so maybe he gets the opportunity and just gets the points because he gets the opportunity because volume is king. But yeah, this is someone that I really can't stomach rostering someone that I just don't think is a good player. Right? Now this guy's athletic and he can catch the ball. But I think that's all you really have out of him. I'm really concerned about Singleton, and I just kind of refuse to draft him in the early second of drafts. Now, the next player that we're going to be talking about is Kaytron Allen. Now, I think Kaytron Allen is a much better runner of the football than Singleton is. I think he's got a lot more talent as a runner. He's just kind of solid all around. He's not particularly explosive, though. And so I get the sense that this guy is more of a Brian Robinson mold of player, where it's like, man, that's a really solid player, but they're not necessarily getting elite volume or ever elite production. And so I could see a path where he carves out a role and he's kind of like the Chris Rodriguez, and JCM is kind of in the same position as he was last year as like the lightning explosive back. But he is a 6th-round pick. It is a terrible draft class. I think people are over-indexing on the fact that Merritt last year was a 7th-round pick when really last year's class was insanely talented. Comparing the two classes, last year's running back class is probably one of the best running back classes we've ever seen. Like, Scadaboo went in the 4th round. That guy in this class would be the clear RB2 or 3. So, yeah, I think getting taken in the 6th round in this class means less than JCM going in the 7th last year. I'm sure there were running backs that were taken really late last year that weren't any good, but the depth of that class was just so much greater than this class that I don't really think it's fair to, use the draft capital argument against Merritt when he's probably closer to like a 3rd or 4th round talent. And Allen, I don't know if he gets drafted in other classes, right? So I can kind of see the vision. I just don't really know. I don't really see the explosive ability to really have a ton of upside. I think he could be like a usable RB2 type, but I really don't know if the odds of that are that high, and that's mainly the concern. Now, the next player we're going to talk about is Carson Beck. He honestly went a lot higher in the NFL draft than I thought he was going to go. I'm not sure where the mock drafts had him going in, but generally speaking, across the film perspective, he wasn't viewed as this top end quarterback prospect. It wasn't until late in the process where teams were like, "Oh, we like him because he played a lot of games in college, so he has experience." That's the new thing right now, is that teams really value that experience because they saw someone like Bo Nix recently do well after having a lot of experience, or Jaden Daniels. And it's like, yeah, that matters, but it's not everything. And I think Beck is just not good. Pat Kerrane did a podcast episode with Coach Speak Index, and basically Coach Speak was saying, hey, I was watching the interviews with Beck, and they didn't really have any complimentary things to say about his game other than he's big and he played a lot of games in college. So that's very concerning. Brett Whitefield expressed high concern for Carson Beck because he just doesn't think he's good, and that he had an injury that really zapped his arm talent away. So even in Superflex, even if you need a quarterback, I'm just like not bothering with Beck. I mean, he might start some games for you this year, but I can't really see him being a long-term starter ever. So there's not really a point to take him in the third there when, you have access to some receivers that are kind of interesting, and you could always trade down to when in the rookie draft. Hopefully, I know people don't generally want to in this class trade into these picks, but so the final player we'll talk about, and we don't really need to talk about him as much as I thought we were going to have to, is Mike Washington. Going into the draft, he was the clear consensus RB3, and it's a similar problem that Singleton has. Although I think he's a more explosive athlete than Singleton, and his traits are more appealing, but there isn't much from a running ability standpoint. He's big, but doesn't really use his size well in game. He's not elusive. He doesn't really make people miss. He's kind of like a one cut, I'm just gonna hit a home run type of back. But he obviously got this terrible landing spot where he's just pretty clearly the backup to Ashton Genty. Maybe he'll sprinkle in some touches here or there, but I just can't imagine him getting much of a workload behind Genty. He's ultimately just like a handcuff, so I don't really mind. I guess I don't really mind him at the 212. I guess that's fine, but I'd be a little bit more interested in some of these tight ends. Claire, Raritan, and Delp are kind of intriguing, and then Fields is an interesting receiver. If he's there, I'd probably take Stribling. I'd probably take there too. So I think the receiver class is kind of deep, and if you take receiver and tight end class is deep, and if you're taking some of these quarterbacks or running backs, like early, I think you're missing out a little bit on more talented profiles, right? And because when you're taking these running backs, you're really buying into the situation and not the actual prospect, right? And when you're taking the quarterback too, that's also the case. So I generally want to be buying better profiles and not really worrying about the situation as much. And I mean, sure, if you want to use situation to influence your later round picks, fine. I mean, they're dart throws anyways, so the chances of them hitting are not very high. But taking some of these guys in the second round, it's just not something that I'm really willing to do, given how weak their profiles are and how weak of a class this is. But yeah, let me know if there's any profiles that you're fading in this year's rookie draft. If you have any pushback, like you think Nick Singleton is actually really good, feel free to, sound off in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching.